Even the die-hearted labor rights them. The one them when you cut them blood green. Many of them agree with the MP, Everett Warmington, that our government has no business bailing out the churches after Melissa. Both them a take taxpayer money for the church. When so many of our churches are rich, awash with money, including the pastor who come out and a lick out pan Warmington. The Power of Faith pastor for the Power of Faith Church in Portmore. Bishop Delford Davis or whatever his name. He's a rich man. Bishop Davis, why don't you open up your books and show us the millions and millions of dollars that you have in the bank account? That bank account that you have at NCB in Portmore, why don't you open it up and show us the many millions? In fact, who don't know say Power of Faith have probably the most money in a them bank account in Portmore, probably in the entire St. Catherine. Take it from 119. Take it from me, Bishop Davis. Come clean. The $75 million that the government is giving to the church. You can give that. You can double that and give to every church in Jamaica. Talk truth. Why don't you tell the country the amount of millions where you get every year for your wedding anniversary and you and your wife's birthday? In Bishop, a lot of these pastors are con men. I'm not saying that about Bishop Power of Faith. I don't know him me attack. I'm generalizing now. A lot of you, every Sunday want to chop the line. Every Sunday want to pimp out God. Want to take God for one big piece of puppy show. And before you say no to taxpayers' money, no, we don't want it. Because there are many Jamaicans still suffering after Melissa. Who open up on a hungry belly. Open up on a hungry mouth. And I take on Warmington.
I wanted to also emphasize that we are not leaving out our churches. Minister of Local Government, Minister Mackenzie, pointed out that we made an allocation for churches, and as I drove through the affected areas, it pains my heart to see so many of our churches, particularly our historic churches, destroyed. And I have seen some congregations, having their services under tents or under patched up roofs. So we have made a special provision. The churches in the 16 affected constituencies, you may contact the SDC office, and then we have a loan program which we are working through the NHD, that there are some churches who may be able to afford a loan to rebuild their facilities, and so those will be at very considerable.
Oh, I love Everett Warmington so much. Everett Warmington, you are my favorite man. You are my man, Everett Warmington. I love you, Everett Warmington. I admire you so much. You are so straight. I don't mean you're straight. I don't mean you're straight in that way, Everett. And I don't mean, when I say I admire you, I don't mean I admire your physique. That's not what I mean. But sometimes you say some things and you do some things. I could just kiss you, Everett Warmington. I could just give you a big fat hug, Everett Warmington. But I know I have to be careful with you. I can't really kiss you. I can't really kiss you. I don't normally kiss men, but sometimes I feel like I would just plant a big fat fat kiss upon you, Everald Warmington. The way I am affectionate towards. Oh Lord, I don't want Mr. Warmington to get any ideas, you know. Don't get any ideas, Mr. Warmington, because I know I can't run certain joke with you. I know I not run certain joke with you. So I could just shake your hand, Mr. Warmington. I could just shake your hand. Oh, but even that might be risky, because I probably got touch you on and you get finicky. So I have to be careful with you. I don't know what to do with you, Mr. Warmington. I think I have to stay from afar. I have to stay from afar and just come in you and say, you're a politician who we want some more of.
Government member is pushing back strongly against his own administration's decision to allocate 75 million to the Social Development Commission to assist churches and faith-based organizations impacted by Hurricane Melissa.
The announcement, intended to signal inclusivity in the national recovery effort, is now the source of controversy. Details in this report.
There's no logic in this. Let us look for the people who are suffering out there. That's what the government ought to be doing, instead of propping up the churches with cash when they're already flooded with cash.
Member of Parliament for St. Catharines Southwestern Everald Warmington rejecting the government's decision to allocate $75 million to support churches and faith-based institutions in rebuilding efforts following Hurricane Melissa. The announcement, which was made by Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness last week, has left Mr. Warmington with a number of questions. Among them, how was the decision made and what will the funds be used for?
The last report is that the churches have billions of dollars in their account. So I believe at this time the church ought to step up to the plate and assist the membership that were affected. Those members were affected. This is the time when they should be assisting their members from this vast amount of cash that they have, because the members have been giving. So it's time for them to give back.
However, Dr. Holness emphasized the vital role of churches in society, noting their collaboration with the government and other agencies in the hurricane relief effort. He added that some congregations are having their services under tents, and so special provisions were made. Mr. Warmington stressed he's not against the church, but insists the funds could be better used to support families still displaced.
Those who have denomination of churches close together, combine these membership into one building. Because most of these churches, anyone on a Sunday, don't have anybody in them. Very few people are in these churches. So the best they can do is to combine the membership at one location and having all these structures all over the place. It's not the duty of government to rebuild the churches. There's a separation of church and state. So I don't see why the government will be stepping up to rebuilding these churches. It's not our duty. I'm not against the church. I'm a part of the church. But funds should not be going to taxpayers. Funds should not be going to religious institutions or organizations in this fashion.
Everald Warmington is a Labourite. He's JLP. But whenever the JLP goes wrong, Warming a ramp with them. Warming a ramp to tell them how wrong them is. And some of these pastors, you better make sure, say, if you know their church one day, you not keep nothing like a funeral and all these things. And you see Mr. Warmington in the audience. Try not to speak in tongues. You better not speak in tongues, because Everald Warmington not going to go learn tongues and come back. You try speaking plain English.
That Jamaica siga siendo un buen vecino y amigo a la gente y el gobierno cubano. Nuestra historia y amistad ha sido lleno del apoyo de Cuba en muchos aspectos, especialmente
Hold on a moment, member from St. Catherine Southwest. You are, the standing orders were suspended in order to allow. No, not only, member. I'm not sure if you had stepped out of the chamber at the time, but leeway was granted by the speaker to allow specifically for him to speak in Spanish. To speak in a language. Yes, member.
Don't cut up my mic. Don't cut up, please.
Member, I did not turn your mic on at all. Could you start from the beginning?
I'm not aware of what he's saying. I don't speak Spanish. And the standing order that is written for this house, you must speak in English and English only. I have no idea what he's saying. And I'm entitled to understand what is being said in this house by any member. I don't speak Spanish. And this said, I must hear it in English. Okay? Are you supposed to learn Spanish and come back?
Thank you for your intervention, member. So, members, he is correct in respect of the language allowed by Standing Order 6. However, the member asked previously and member, so he would have to speak in both language, English, and the same would be said in Spanish. And member, the standing order said the proceedings and debates of the House shall be in English language. All right, every petition shall be in the English language. That is Standing Order 6. However, member, you may have stepped out of the House. Before the member started the debate, before he began reading the resolution, he asked previously, and it was put to the House to allow him to speak in another language, which was Spanish, in solidarity with our, yes, he did. And I did. And it was so moved, separate and apart from the suspension of the standing orders for the motion itself. So yes, member, it was done. Member, Minister Terrelong, please recommence. Please, for the benefit of the member, from St. Catherine Southwest, since I do not speak Spanish either, when you indicate your statement in Spanish for the benefit and solidarity of our sisters, brother country here and present in Parliament today and listening to us from Cuba, they will be able to appreciate very clearly our solidarity and the suspension of the standing orders that was done in that respect for them on this occasion, and then repeat same in English for the benefit of Hansard and all members seated here who speak only English. So ruled by the speaker.
You go, Warmy. You go, my man. You are my man. You are my man, Mr. Warmington. But some of these church leaders want suck out the little money where poor people have. And so when Andrew come announce that the government had made this very stupid, this very foolish decision to give taxpayers' money, $75 million of taxpayers' money, poor people money, taking it to give to churches. And it's not that I'm not against church. I am a God-fearing man. I am a man of faith. I love my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who died for my sins. I am close to God. I honor the Lord. I worship the Lord. So no, don't get it wrong. No, get it twisted. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And you know that Warming is seldom wrong. In go on with the antics, you know. But all the antics where you see me go on with there, you know. Most of the time he's right. Most of the time he's correct. He's feisty. And he can be very abrasive, but so what? So am I.
Political firebrand Everald Warmington on Friday last week caused quite a stir when he launched a scathing verbal attack on reporters at the JLP headquarters.
I said don't do it, you don't do it. I'm not here for no show. So I said don't take no picture, don't take none. If I said no take me, no take none, that's me say. I don't know who you are, I said don't take no picture of me, so I said no take me, no take none. That's simple thing that me say. I'm not here as a model. I said no take no picture of me. Come on, shut I know you should be on the compound. You shouldn't be here. If they need you, they'll call you. They need you, they'll call you.
Mr. Warmington subsequently apologized to the Gleaner intern whose camera he had hit when she tried to take his photograph.
It wasn't a very druggy, dredgy state, pain, because the machine caused a lot of pain itself. And the machine have a lot of pain also. So I'm based on that. So I apologize to her and to you also, sir, most sincerely. For any disrespect and inconvenience that caused. I don't normally apologize for anything, but I believe I need to. Having got nobody feeling the machine, everything, I'm back to myself. I think I apologize most sincerely. And where she's concerned, I don't get interviewed to the press, but I'm prepared to make a pride-burn interview and photograph and tell you what. But I apologize most sincerely.
But Tuesday presented a test of just how repentant the Southwest St. Catherine MP was. Mr. Warmington is the driver of this grey Range Rover Sport. As he rolled into JLP headquarters on Tuesday morning, a television journalist poked at the window of the MP's vehicle as he tried to get his attention. Warmington's response, a flash of the middle finger on his right hand. As he drove off, there was another. While on the inside, someone outside the gate of the premises tried to get his attention, and there was yet another gesture. During the lunch interval, we asked Mr. Warmington what the gesture meant. He responded that members of the media do not like him, and the feeling is mutual.
Why don't you leave me the hell alone? What the watch meeting? Why don't you leave me the hell alone? Why don't you leave me the hell alone?
JLP General Secretary Dr. Horace Chang faced similar questions to explain Mr. Warmington's actions. Dr. Chang put it to us if we may have misinterpreted the gesture for a JLP shower sign.
No, you mean, in a salting way or is a JLP sign?
Dr. Chang, however, promised to investigate the matter.
It's not unfortunate again, and you have had problems with the same person. I will have discussion and come back to you.
No, man. And that's why I tell her, say, I'm my guy. It's my guy. Oh, warm me. I don't know what to do with you. And the decision that was taken to give taxpayer money to church, to put on back their roof and fix up them building, is because Warmington was taken out of the cabinet, you know. So Warmington can't take part in the decision making again. Because Andrew not put him back in the cabinet. Can't get too much trouble and too much problem. But if Warmington was ever in that cabinet meeting, that decision would not have passed the smell test. Warming would have licked out on it. Them would have come and roll with it. But of course, you know, political parties always want to cozy up to the church because they need the votes. They need the votes of the congregations. But I tell you something. I hear Warmington was making a point. Two very valid points. One, where we are at now with technology. We don't need a church building. We probably need one church building in every parish. Because you can have churches online now. It's not like one time when you have to go to church every Sunday, go sit down in a church. Yes, you need a little fellowship. Now and then you might have go gather in a school auditorium or something, have some fellowship once a month or whatever. You don't need these big buildings again. Technology has changed all of that. Technology is changing everything. And so Warmington is right about that. The other thing that he's right about is the fact that half of these churches are empty anyway. Half of them are empty. People now have no respect for churches, to be honest with you, because they have become mercenaries. Churches have become businesses. Most of the churches across Jamaica today are now enterprises, money-making enterprises. They are scams. A lot of them should be arrested by the police. Una prostitute out God. Una take God for puppy show. God a serious something, God a no mockery. You have church at Jamaica now where charge people for pray for them. If you want prayer, you have to pay for the prayer. I don't know why the Lord don't strike down somehow. If God was like man, if God was ever like man, no, wouldn't they have it today? Because somehow are nothing but con artists and con men and scammers. Una chopper. Holy power no person. Una chopper. Somehow have millions, man. I want to know it. Give poor people somehow millions. Go down a country, carry some of the million, take some of the million out of an account and carry the people.
To a primetime news follow-up now, church leaders are firing back at criticism from government MP Everett Warmington about the $75 million approved to help faith-based institutions and churches recover after Hurricane Melissa. Details in this report. It's been less than 24 hours since government MP Everett Warmington publicly objected to the government's allocation of $75 million to help churches rebuild from Hurricane Melissa. But already, the clergy has come out swinging.
Of course, Mr. Warmington just loved to talk.
In an interview with TVJ News on Monday, Mr. Warmington questioned the justification for the allocation by Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness and argued that many churches are financially stable and should care for themselves at this time. However, Bishop Delford Davis of Power of Faith Ministry International dismissed that claim, arguing that some churches are in fact struggling financially.
I can't speak to the wealth of the congregations or the church generally. One thing I know, church is generally supported by the love, the free will gifts of tithes and offering of its members. So of course the whole question of wealth being amassed, I can't speak to that. I know churches struggle to carry out their missions because the mission of the church goes way beyond the four walls.
Bishop Rowan Edwards of the Lighthouse Assembly went further.
Not many churches have money that Mr. Warmington is talking about. Many of the rural churches don't have a proper account. They don't have an account because the money that the church makes has to be given back to the people who attend the church. So they don't have the kind of money that Mr. Warmington is talking about.
In raising his objection, Mr. Warmington also suggested that the affected churches consolidate their membership with others. Bishop Davis says it could be considered. However,
the very fact that we know that there's a need for the weakness of the church in each community, I would rather support us standing with each community and with each local congregation to make them a light shining in that particular area than to consolidate in certain areas. I believe it will create a void within those communities from which those congregations would be removed.
The pastors commended Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness for approving the allocation, describing it as a timely intervention which highlights the government's recognition of the role churches play in society. But for Bishop Rowan Edwards,
at the same time, we have to realize that people are without roofs. People don't have a place to live. We would ask Mr. Prime Minister that you give the church the money to help their people to put back on their roofs. When their roofs have gone back on, now you give us more money to put back on our church roofs.
In the meantime, the church leaders are calling for constructive discussions, insisting the issue should be focused on recovery, partnership, and national resilience.
While states do not run church, and church do not run state. But it's a wonderful thing for church and state to collaborate in all the ways that they can.
In the meantime, clergymen based in rural Jamaica are also taking Everald Warmington to task for his position. In St. Elizabeth, the clergy says the cash would be a boost to the church's mission.
That money is well needed. I mean, I want you to know that the church has a very special mission, and that is to help humanity. And that is really what the church has been doing. So, I mean, the government, a matter of fact, cannot do everything. And the church is actually doing a wonderful work in helping people, in better people's life in many ways. So if this time comes around where the church should really get a particular help, I don't see why the church shouldn't get any form of help from the government, if the government wants to give it. I think Mr. Warmington is misinformed or doesn't really understand the mission of the church. Because the mission of the church is really to help with the needs and the situation of mankind.
Minister Parkins contends the church is among the institutions helping Jamaicans through the crisis. Therefore, it is not wrong for the state to assist.
And by the way, were we ever told when Mr. Warmington net did crick, when he had the cast, that cast something there round his neck there, were we ever told how they do him, how they cast his neck for pop? So I wonder what Warmy was doing with his head. I wonder if he was moving his head up and down very vigorously. You know, up and down, up and down, up and down like. I wonder if this is what he was doing with his head when him neck get that pop sound that him have put on that cast there round his neck. You want me? But I don't care, Warmy. I don't care what they say about you. I don't give a damn what they say about you, Warmy. Give them the middle finger. Give them the middle finger again, Warmy. All the church people them too. Give the church people the middle finger too.
Government, churches, NHT money, and national priorities. An MP, Everald Warmington, is not backing down, even after fierce backlash from church leaders. So the question is simple. Who should public funds really serve after a disaster? A government member of parliament, Everald Warmington, has fired back at church leaders who sharply criticized him for opposing the government's proposed $75 million allocation to help churches rebuild after Hurricane Melissa. According to reports from Television Jamaica and the Jamaica Observer, Mr. Warmington made it clear he does not believe funds from the National Housing Trust should be used to rebuild churches. Mr. Warmington's comments may have ruffled feathers, but they've also forced a serious national conversation. His central argument is not an attack on faith or churches. It's about priority and purpose. He's asking whether limited public resources, especially housing funds, should be diverted to institutions when thousands of ordinary citizens are still struggling with damaged homes, displacement. This is where the controversy turns into scrutiny. And scrutiny is not a bad thing. In fact, it is essential. The Observer notes that while Mr. Warmington's tone may be blunt, his stance represents a necessary check on government decision-making. Public funds, even when used for well-intentioned purposes, must be questioned. Who benefits most? Is this the best use of limited resources? Does it serve the wider public good? This debate is not churches versus citizens. It's about priorities. It's about whether policy decisions align with the broader social needs of a country rebuilding after crisis, and whether public accountability is something we truly embrace or only support when it's comfortable. Whether you agree with Mr. Warmington or not, this conversation cannot be ignored, because public policy is not just about what is done, but why it is done and who it ultimately serves. And in moments like these, critical dialogue is not disrespect. It is democracy at work.
You know, as someone who grew up in the church, I grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist church. And as a young man going to school, it always bothered me a lot that my mother, my very poor mother, who worked for pennies, who have her little business where she hustle on 2 cents. And every Sabbath, she had to take out the money. The little money when we take go to school. The money when we take for buy me school lunch. When she get her PR, she make her money off her hustling, off her selling. The first thing she had to do was take out an envelope and take out money out of it. 1/3 or what, 1/10, how much, whatever they say. And put in a one envelope and carry go get the church. And after the church, when we left church, I never forget this. It used to ride me. Something was wrong about it even as a child. That after we leave church, after my mama take out our money, our last car go get the church, go get passing. And when church over, we were going home, not sure where we are going to eat. Not sure where we are going to eat. And the pastor jump in his big car. And beep, 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 beep. And gone in his big car with the money. And we go home hungry. On Monday morning, me can't go to school, or me go to school, me can't be able to get bus fare and lunch money. No. God could never want that injustice. The Lord God Almighty, that is not what he asked for, I'm sure. God could never want that. There is something very wrong about that. Very, very, very wrong. I don't know if you stop take up on the money and give passing. Stop take up on the money, mind passing and pass a picnic. I want to poor, can't barely find food for eat. Can't barely find clothes to wear and buy shoes. Some time we barefoot, then time there. Can't buy shoes. And pass have a million pair of shoes. And we still a give me money. There is no excuse for it. No excuse for it. The good thing about it all is that you have 1 and 2 person who come out and dip on the side of Warmington. 1 and 2 pastor, 1 and 2 church leaders say yes, Mr. Warmington is correct, including this one here.
A statement from Mr. Everard Warmington. Mr. Warmington, who took the government to task for committing $75 million to aid and to assist churches. And Mr. Warmington raised an objection, saying that government funds should not be so expended. And he went on to say that the churches should be doing things for the people. And he doesn't see or hear anything that the church is doing. I want to address that by saying, 1, Mr. Warmington is absolutely right on a matter of principle. Mr. Warmington is absolutely right on a matter of principle. Government funds shouldn't be going at this time to assist churches, sanctuaries that is, when people are still living out under the elements. It should not happen. I agree with Mr. Warmington 100%. I don't know on what basis taxpayers' money is being utilized to repair churches. On a matter of principle, Mr. Warmington is right. Granted, he's a little short on facts when he said that the church is not doing anything. And you can excuse his ignorance, because with all that we have done, and the many other congregations have done, we didn't go around with any cameras to say we are doing this. So he's not aware, and that's how it ought to be. We didn't carry any cameras to violate people's dignity when we are offering them help and support. Well, I think Mr. Warmington might know what we don't know, and he's touching on something that many of us don't want to touch. $75 million is nothing. It cannot repair the Springfield Moravian Church, where Sister Merlin's relatives will be interred out in the open. Now I was talking to Deacon Bowen. I went to that church some years ago and was tremendously impressed by the structure, the beauty of it, the furnishings. And when I hear that thing was completely destroyed, boy, it broke my heart. $75 million cannot restore that. So when the government is offering $75 million, Mr. Warmington probably know that it is a public relations gimmick. It's a public relations gimmick. And I am surprised that the opposition has not come out against it. And I suggest why they haven't come out against it. It might be not strategic. They are afraid of the church. And it's certain elements of the church that they are afraid of. Maybe the element that is associated with what they call the moral majority up north. You know, some persons over time who claim to speak on behalf of the church as a moral majority. And they are neither moral nor are they in the majority. Because some positions that they take are absolutely conflicting. So the politicians on both sides might be a little afraid of this so-called moral majority in the church, which is why on neither side we hear persons coming out and making a stand on a matter of principle to support Mr. Warmington, who is not a man I'm very willing to support based on his behavior. But the truth is the truth. He must be supported. I want to say that no pastor, you remember where I start? With the pastor in Petersfield, who say they don't want any help to fix churches, while the lives of people is in need of urgent assistance. I don't think any church leader should accept this thing from the government. They shouldn't. Not for the fixing of church building. Should not accept it. While people are still out in the open in Petersfield, up to now they can't find shelter for those persons. No church leader, I think, should accept that assistance while persons are out in the open. Church leaders must reflect a pastor's heart. And sometimes, as pastors, we're too licky to reflect the pastor's heart.
And I am not saying that the church don't serve a very vital and important purpose in our lives. We need spirituality, especially in this time of so much uncertainties, so much madness, so much immorality, so much homosexuality. Everything goes now with women. Everything upside down. We need that moral compass. We need somebody, we need an entity to stand up for what's right. And so the church has a very, very important role to play. But the church should not prostitute out itself. Salvation is free. Salvation is not something to make money off of. Salvation is not rice and flour and sugar. And of course, we know that pastors have to live. Get a job. Get a job like everybody else. Me no see the reason for pastors have preaching as careers. Why ministering should become a career? Why do we have theology schools and all? For what? Preaching and ministry should be something that comes as a matter of calling. The Lord speaks to your heart and you want to do it. You don't have to be paid for it. You shouldn't have to be paid for it. Who was paying the prophets? The men of God. They were getting paid to evangelize, to save souls. If you have to be paid to save souls. You're not genuine. You not genuinely want to do it. You want to work. You want to hustle. No, man. Get everyday jobs. And then you can have your preaching and your ministry as a calling, something that you just do. You don't depend upon but dig out people who will want to get up and dig out money from other people. But we're not passing. No. But as I said, the church has really done some good. Me not lick out upon the genuine church them, you know. Me not lick out upon the genuine pastor them, you know. Because 1 and 2 hour, no. Not very much. Not a whole lot. Most hour no do it for the money. But 1 and 2 hour, no. Really genuine. And so we have to recognize that you guys still have a very vital role to play. I don't know, have a function to take care of. But come on, man. Come on. Pull up the socks, man. God is not for sale. The Lord Jesus Christ is certainly not for sale. And not to mention the one them in America. Oh, those preachers in America. They are such a fraud. They fraud the people them every day and get away with it. You want to commit some fraud? Just get up and say, pastor, legal fraud. You not go America, man. You don't have to go America, go work, you know. Just go over there and say, pastor. And you can't preach good and you whatever, you go like you heal people and so. That is the next scam too, you know. When you go to a church and then push you over, you drop a ground and touch you. Say you drop a ground. And then line up some of them friend them. If you come in a church, say they have 1 foot. That time a 2 foot they have in and then put on the one. Say they have 1 foot. Or they can't walk. And the pastor preach and heal him and rub him down with some oil. And then grow back the next foot. Or line up some of their friends for say them blind. And the pastor come and touch your eye. And oh, you can see. You know see them a con artist? You know see this thing of madness is legal scamming. Legal fraud. A lot of it. And in America, Poopa Jesus. Who over there say, you know? You have to buy all private jet, give them the pastor there and buy them yacht, you know.
And a private jet worth $70 million touches down on a private runway. The man stepping off isn't a tech billionaire or an oil tycoon. He's a televangelist. Kenneth Copeland adjusts his tailored suit, flashes that famous smile, and prepares to tell thousands of followers that God wants them to be rich just like him. But here's what those followers don't know. Over the past 5 decades, this man has built an empire worth $750 million. And he's done it all tax-free, claiming divine exemption while living in a lakefront mansion that would make royalty jealous. The year is 1967. A young Kenneth Copeland, a former pilot and failed recording artist, attends a revival meeting in Arkansas. He's broke, desperate, and searching for something. That's when he encounters a preacher named Oral Roberts, who introduces him to a theological concept that will change Copeland's life forever and make him unfathomably wealthy. It's called the Prosperity Gospel, and its message is intoxicating. God doesn't want you to be poor. God wants you to be rich. But there's a catch. To receive God's financial blessings, you must first give money to God's chosen messengers. And conveniently, Kenneth Copeland is about to become one of those messengers. Within a year, Copeland launches Kenneth Copeland Ministries from a tiny office in Fort Worth, Texas. His message is simple but revolutionary for its time. Faith is a force, words have power, and believers can literally speak wealth into existence. But more importantly, if you send money to Kenneth Copeland Ministries, God is obligated by spiritual law to return it to you, multiplied. It's prosperity theology dressed up as Christianity, and it spreads like wildfire across America's Bible Belt. The numbers start small, a few $1,000s here and there from believers hoping for divine financial intervention. But Copeland is a natural showman. He's charismatic, confident, and unlike many preachers of his era, he looks directly into the camera with an intensity that's almost hypnotic. His eyes, which some describe as piercing and others as unsettling, never waver when he makes his financial promises. Send $100, get 1,000 back. Send 1,000, get 10,000. It's not gambling, he assures viewers, it's spiritual law. By the 1970s, Kenneth Copeland Ministries is pulling in millions annually. Television programs reach into homes across America. Copeland's books flood Christian bookstores. But here's where the story takes its first dark turn. Former employees and ministry insiders begin to notice something troubling. The money coming in doesn't seem to match the ministry work going out. Millions are raised for missions and evangelical outreach, but the bulk of the funds appear to be circulating within a tight circle of Copeland family members and close associates. Financial transparency is virtually non-existent. As a religious organization, Kenneth Copeland Ministries enjoys tax-exempt status under Section 501, Sci. 3 of the U.S. Tax Code. This means they don't have to pay federal income taxes. It also means they have minimal reporting requirements compared to other nonprofits. Where exactly is all that money going? The ministry isn't telling, and legally they barely have to. But some things can't be hidden. In 1991, Trinity Foundation, a religious watchdog organization, begins investigating Copeland's financial practices. What they uncover is staggering. Copeland isn't living modestly as a servant of God. He's living like a king. His primary residence is an 18,000 square foot lakefront mansion on a sprawling estate in Newark, Texas. The property value? Estimated at over $6 million at the time, worth far more today. But here's the kicker. The home is owned by the ministry, not by Copeland personally. This means it's technically tax-exempt property, a parsonage for a pastor who needs room for prayer and meditation, apparently across 18,000 square feet. Hey, quick question before we go further. Where are you watching this from, and what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how far this story is reaching. And if you're enjoying what you're learning here on Professor Archive, consider hitting that super thanks button. It genuinely helps us continue investigating stories like this one that mainstream media often ignores. The mansion is just the beginning. Investigation reveals that Copeland's ministry has purchased multiple properties, all conveniently used by Copeland family members. There's the Copeland family ranch, complete with multiple structures. There are vacation properties. But the real jaw-dropper is the private airport and the jets. Kenneth Copeland doesn't just own one private jet. Over the years, his ministry has owned several, including a Citation X and a Gulfstream V valued at approximately $20 million. When questioned about this extravagance, Copeland's response becomes infamous. In a 2015 video that goes viral, Copeland explains why he needs a private jet. He calls commercial airlines a long tube with a bunch of demons and says he can't be expected to talk to people about God while sitting in coach. The statement shocks even some of his most devoted followers, but it gets worse. When a reporter asks if his lifestyle is appropriate for a minister, Copeland erupts in a bizarre, menacing laugh that becomes an internet meme. His eyes widen unnaturally, and he tells the reporter that the jet was paid for by people who love me. He's not wrong, but those people were told their donations were going to spread the gospel, not to ensure Kenneth Copeland never has to sit near regular people on a plane. Let's talk numbers, because this is where the theft allegation really crystallizes. According to financial experts who have analyzed Kenneth Copeland Ministries, the organization has brought in well over $760 million since its inception. Some estimates put it closer to $1 billion when you factor in unreported cash donations and ministry-related business ventures. Where has this money gone? A detailed investigation by Inside Edition in 2019 attempted to track the ministry's spending. What they found was a financial labyrinth designed to obscure rather than illuminate. The ministry operates through multiple entities: Kenneth Copeland Ministries, Eagle Mountain International Church, and several related corporations. Money flows between these entities in ways that make outside auditing nearly impossible. Salaries for Copeland family members aren't publicly disclosed. The ministry argues that as a church, they have no obligation to reveal this information. But leaks from former employees paint a disturbing picture. Multiple sources claim that Kenneth Copeland pays himself an annual salary exceeding $500,000, not including benefits, use of ministry property, and ministry-funded personal expenses. His wife, Gloria Copeland, draws a separate salary. Their daughter, Terry Copeland Pearsons, serves as a minister within the organization and receives compensation. Son-in-law George Pearsons also draws a ministry salary. It's a family business, masquerading as a ministry. Then there's the land deal that really exposes the operation's true nature. In 2008, Tarrant County officials in Texas discover something shocking. Kenneth Copeland Ministries has claimed a tax exemption on property valued at over $35 million. This isn't just the church building. This includes the private airstrip, hangars for the jets, and hundreds of acres of land. County officials challenge the exemption, arguing that an airport is a commercial enterprise, not a religious one. Copeland's legal team fights back viciously, arguing that the airport is necessary for ministry operations. The case reveals something even more troubling. Copeland has been using the ministry's airport to hangar other people's jets and has been charging them fees, essentially running a for-profit business under the umbrella of tax-exempt religious property. This is potentially illegal, a clear violation of nonprofit tax law. But Copeland's lawyers argue that all income from the airport operations goes back into ministry work. Can anyone verify this? No, because the ministry's books remain sealed. During the legal battle, county officials attempt to appraise Copeland's mansion to determine appropriate taxation. They're denied access. The ministry claims the property is sacred religious space and refuses to allow appraisers inside. Eventually, after years of litigation and political pressure, a compromise is reached. Some property loses its tax-exempt status, but the core assets, including the mansion and primary airport facilities, retain their exemptions. It's a partial victory for Copeland, and it sends a message to other prosperity preachers. You can shield enormous wealth under religious exemptions if you fight hard enough. But let's talk about the real victims here, the believers. Every year, tens of thousands of people send money to Kenneth Copeland Ministries. These aren't wealthy people looking to get wealthier. Analysis of the ministry's donor base reveals that the overwhelming majority are lower middle-class Americans, often elderly, often struggling with health or financial problems. They send $20, $50, $100 they genuinely can't afford because Kenneth Copeland has promised them that God will multiply their seed offering. The testimonials are heartbreaking. One woman, featured in a 2018 investigative report, had sent over $30,000 to Copeland's ministry over 15 years. She was a widow on a fixed income, living in a mobile home. She sent money every month because Copeland had promised on television that if she was faithful with her giving, God would heal her financial situation. She died broke, still believing her breakthrough was coming. Another man, a factory worker, documented sending more than $50,000 to various prosperity preachers, including Copeland, over a 20-year period. He was trying to get out of debt and believed the prosperity gospel message that giving would trigger divine financial intervention. Instead, he ended up declaring bankruptcy. When he reached out to Kenneth Copeland Ministries for help, he received a form letter thanking him for his past support and encouraging him to continue giving. These aren't isolated incidents. They're the predictable result of a theological system designed to extract wealth from vulnerable believers. The prosperity gospel inverts traditional Christian teaching. Instead of blessing the poor and warning against the dangers of wealth, it teaches that poverty is a curse and that true faith manifests as material abundance. And if you're not wealthy? Well, according to Copeland's teaching, you must not have enough faith. This creates a psychological trap. Believers who give and don't receive the promised blessings blame themselves, not the preacher who made false promises. The theological problems with Copeland's teaching are profound, and many Christian leaders have spoken out against it. The prosperity gospel cherry-picks Bible verses out of context while ignoring vast portions of Scripture that contradict its central claims. Jesus himself lived in poverty and warned repeatedly about the spiritual dangers of wealth. The apostles lived modestly and warned against teachers who would use religion for financial gain. Early church fathers would have recognized prosperity gospel preachers as exactly the kind of false teachers Scripture warns about. But Copeland doesn't just preach prosperity. He takes it to extremes that border on the blasphemous. In various sermons, he's claimed that believers are gods with the same creative power as the Almighty. He's taught that Jesus took on the nature of Satan on the cross and had to be born again in hell. These aren't minor theological quibbles. They're fundamental departures from Orthodox Christianity that most denominations would classify as heresy. Yet because Copeland operates as an independent ministry, accountable to no denominational oversight, no one can discipline or correct him. In 2007, Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa launches a congressional investigation into 6 prosperity gospel ministries, including Kenneth Copeland Ministries. The Senate Finance Committee wants answers about how these organizations are using their tax-exempt status. They request financial documents, salary information, and details about asset purchases. It's the most serious governmental inquiry into televangelism in decades. Kenneth Copeland's response is to refuse cooperation. Unlike the other ministries investigated, some of which provided at least partial information, Copeland's ministry stonewall completely. They argue that congressional inquiry into a religious organization violates the separation of church and state. Copeland's lawyers send letters claiming that forcing the ministry to disclose financial information would set a dangerous precedent that could threaten religious liberty. The legal argument is clever but disingenuous. The investigation isn't targeting religious belief or practice. It's investigating whether tax-exempt status is being abused. The tax exemption is a privilege granted by the government, not a constitutional right, and it comes with the expectation that organizations won't use it to enrich individuals. But Copeland's legal team drags out the process, and eventually the investigation loses momentum. By 2011, with no definitive findings and facing political pressure from religious liberty advocates, the Senate committee closes the investigation without taking action against any of the ministries. It's a complete victory for Copeland. The message is clear. If you're willing to claim religious persecution and fight dirty enough, you can shield massive wealth from scrutiny. Other prosperity preachers take note. In the years following the failed Senate investigation, the prosperity gospel becomes even more brazen in its wealth displays and financial requests. By 2015, Kenneth Copeland Ministries is bringing in over $100 million annually in revenue. That's not a cumulative number. That's per year. Where is this money going? The ministry claims it funds television broadcasts, missionary work, and operational costs. But analysis of their media presence suggests something doesn't add up. Their television program airs on networks that charge relatively modest fees for airtime. Their missionary work, when documented, involves primarily short-term trips by ministry staff to luxury resorts in developing countries where they hold conferences. The operational costs? Well, operating an 18,000 square foot mansion and maintaining private jets is expensive, so perhaps that's where the money goes. Former employees have come forward with disturbing stories. One former accountant, speaking anonymously to protect against legal retaliation, described a culture of financial secrecy within the ministry. Expenses were categorized creatively to make personal benefits appear ministry-related. Family vacations became missionary trips if a single ministry event was scheduled. Personal shopping trips became ministry clothing allowances. Even groceries for the Copeland mansion were billed as ministry expenses for pastoral care and hospitality. But perhaps the most egregious revelation involves what's called the love offerings. Several times a year, Copeland holds special conferences and events. At these gatherings, after the regular ticket price has been paid, attendees are encouraged to give additional cash offerings directly to Copeland as a love gift to honor the man of God. These offerings are collected in envelopes and aren't processed through normal ministry accounting channels. Attendees have reported feeling pressured to give, with some events featuring ushers who literally wait by each person until they put something in an envelope. Where does this cash go? Nobody knows. It's unreported income that likely amounts to millions over the years. And here's something that will blow your mind. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Kenneth Copeland gains notoriety for a video where he claims to blow the virus away with the wind of God. He literally blows at the camera and declares the pandemic over. It's laughable, but it's also dangerous. Several news outlets track how many believers attended Kenneth Copeland Ministries events during the pandemic without masks or distancing, following his assurance that faith protected them from disease. Multiple attendees later contracted COVID-19, and at least 2 deaths have been indirectly linked to people who attended Copeland's events and then spread the virus to vulnerable family members. But the pandemic provides Copeland with a new fundraising opportunity. He launches special appeals for emergency ministry funding, claiming that COVID is a satanic attack on the ministry's finances. The irony is staggering. A ministry worth over $760 million, claiming financial hardship and asking struggling Americans to send emergency funds during the worst economic crisis in decades. And people do. Thousands send money they desperately need, believing they're saving God's work. The psychological manipulation involved in Copeland's fundraising is sophisticated and ruthless. He uses a technique called anchoring, where he mentions enormous numbers before making his ask. He'll talk about $1 million missions project, making a $1,000 donation seem reasonable by comparison. He creates false urgency, claiming that God has given him a specific deadline for raising funds. He uses social proof, reading testimonials from people who gave and allegedly received miraculous financial breakthroughs. And he always makes it about faith. If you don't give, it's not because you can't afford it. It's because you lack faith. Current estimates place Kenneth Copeland's personal net worth at approximately $760 million. That number is difficult to verify precisely because so much of his wealth is held through ministry entities and family trusts. But based on property values, asset analysis, and financial expert assessments, it's a conservative estimate. Some analysts believe his true wealth exceeds $1 billion when all hidden assets are factored in. To put that in perspective, Kenneth Copeland is wealthier than most Fortune 500 CEOs. He's built a financial empire larger than many multinational corporations, and he's done it entirely through donations from believers, most of whom will never possess even a fraction of his wealth. He's done it tax-free. He's done it with virtually no oversight or accountability. And when challenged, he's wrapped himself in religious liberty and called his critics persecutors of God's anointed. The legal question is straightforward. Has Kenneth Copeland stolen from Christians? In the criminal sense, probably not. He's been careful to stay within the technical boundaries of the law, exploiting every loophole and exemption available to religious organizations. But in the moral and ethical sense, the answer seems obvious. He's taken money given in good faith for religious purposes and used it to fund a lifestyle of extraordinary luxury. He's made promises he knew or should have known he couldn't deliver on. He's exploited the trust and faith of vulnerable people for personal enrichment. What makes this particularly insidious is that it's all legal. The tax code grants religious organizations extraordinary privileges based on the assumption that they'll use them for genuine, charitable, and spiritual purposes. Copeland has weaponized those privileges to build personal wealth while paying zero income tax on the hundreds of millions flowing through his ministry. The average American pays federal income tax. Kenneth Copeland doesn't, despite living a lifestyle that would require a taxable income of tens of millions per year. Several legal scholars and tax experts have called for reform. They argue that religious organizations should face the same financial transparency requirements as other nonprofits. They should have to disclose salaries, especially for highly compensated employees and family members. They should face stricter scrutiny when claiming tax exemptions on property used for personal benefit. And there should be consequences for making fraudulent promises to donors. But reform is politically difficult. Any attempt to increase oversight of religious organizations gets framed as an attack on religious freedom. Politicians fear being labeled as anti-religion, and powerful lobbying groups representing megachurches and televangelist ministries fight aggressively against any regulatory changes. So the system remains unchanged, and people like Kenneth Copeland continue to exploit it.
Who no see how them thief in America But them a passing. And in Jamaica, them a take up the same style out in Jamaica there. And so I'm calling on Mr. Andrew Holness. If you give some of your church people them some of your money already, take it back. If you don't give them it, please do not make such a mistake because I don't know what take you. A how no lick food no head so. That do not do foolishness. You can't, people can't find food to eat. Can't find place to sleep. And your priority is to put on back church roof. Come on, Andrew. Come on. 119.